Hello and welcome to Behind the Scene, podcast where we explore the intersection of art, culture, and big ideas. I'm your host, Sean Malone, the creative director for the Foundation for Economic Education and creator of Out of Frame, a video essay series on YouTube where we talk about a lot of the same kinds of stuff. Here today, as usual, with Jen Maffasanti, who is the Director of Communications at the Libertas Institute in Utah, and of course, our very own Paul Nelson, Senior Marketing Manager and Head of Social Media here at the Foundation for Economic Education. How are you guys doing today?
My child said probably the funniest thing he's ever said in his life last night, and I'm still laughing about it. So we're sitting around and we're watching YouTube after dinner, like we tend to. We get it up on the actual TV in the living room. And as happens on YouTube, there's a commercial break in the middle of the video or whatever. And it's a dumb travel commercial, and we've got it muted, but all I hear my child, thing one, say, he's just muttering quietly to himself, is, "Nobody cares about your beard." And it was an Expedia commercial. It was Ewan McGregor on the screen with his smolderingness and his beard. And he was just, "Nobody cares about your beard." And we are still laughing about it. And I need to not be the only one on this recording who knows about it. So
Unfortunately, a lot of people, for him anyway, a lot of people do care about Ewan McGregor's beard. It's a very nice beard.
I care about his beard.
Yeah, well.
So despite the fact that thing one was demonstrably incorrect, it was still probably the funniest thing he's ever said. And the timing was exquisite. They're getting a lot better about their comedic timing these days.
I'd like to know what was going on in his head in that moment.
I also would like to know.
What was he actually upset about?
I don't know, but we were too busy laughing. And so...
No. Paul, I'm gonna call Paul out here real quick because he started our morning off with just ridiculous photos of grilling and grilled meats, and there were some gigantic tomahawk steaks involved. I mean, these things were, Flintstone sized,
large,
just enormous hunks of dinosaur meat, and it was like perfect. It looked perfectly done, Paul. I got to congratulate you on what you did there.
This is a family show, sir.
I know.
You can't be showing that stuff.
Yeah, it's this will be for, our supporters only, this picture. If you want to see the picture of the meat,
oh my goodness.
Go to Patreon or go to the Discord and the green room.
Yeah.
It was my birthday Friday. We're recording this on the Monday, and that night I was like, I want some steak. So my family was in town. We went to Sam's Club, procured a couple tomahawks, cowboy ribeyes, whatever you want to call them. And
those things were...
it was delicious.
Were impressive. And look, there's a lot. I mean, I'll say this, like, as somebody who's a pretty avid cook, and I know Jen also, cooks all the time. Like, we're pretty big fans of this kind of stuff. I see a lot of meat photos on the internet, a lot of grilling photos, and a lot of people with very large degrees of overestimating their ability with a grill. I'm going to throw this out there. Those things looked amazing. I mean, they looked flawlessly done.
Quality.
They looked really good. So
I appreciate that, and I it's one of those things. Smoking, grilling, it's when you get the right tools, it turns out to be pretty easy, but a lot of fun, very, very fulfilling. I love doing it. It's one of those things that I just am able to get outside, smoke some meats, and then enjoy my handiwork.
What's wonderful in general is, like, just in life, I feel like there's generally no better sense of accomplishment than taking something that you have basically creating something, and then in a relatively short period of time. So you've taken like raw materials, or you've taken like nothing and turned it into a story or into a sculpture or into a piece of art or whatever. Like, being able to sort of create something from raw materials and then see the finished product over the course of a day is like a really fulfilling thing to do. And it's one of the reasons why I like the kind of jobs that I've had for most of my career. But like the beautiful thing about cooking, and the thing that I just have to extol the virtues of cooking for anybody listening, is that you not only get to do that, you not only get to take raw materials or just take an idea, from your head and turn it into something real, you then get to enjoy it in a completely different way. Like you get to enjoy the experience of creation, and then you get to enjoy the experience of consumption. And it all happens typically within the span of an hour or two, which is amazing. Like there's just something incredibly gratifying about the whole thing. So,
it's immensely satisfying.
That's my argument in favor of learning how to cook for everybody.
Yeah, for sure.
But I want to take this back to I'm gonna segue from the beard conversation for a minute, because a lot of beards in the, or at least one main beard in the movie, metaphorical and literal beard in the movie.
Where are you going with this, Sean? Where are you going?
Oh, you see where I'm going with this. We're today on the show. We want to talk about The Secrets of Dumbledore, starring Jude Law, of course, as the titular character, Dumbledore himself. I just wanted to see Jen's face when I said that word.
It's one of my favorite words.
But look. Jude Law, Mads Mikkelsen playing Galette Grindelwald, and Eddie Redmayne playing the now kind of least important character in what was, originally his own franchise. The, Newt Scamander of the Fantastic Beasts movie. So this is technically a Fantastic Beasts movie. There are some Fantastic Beasts in it, to some extent, anyway. But that actually really felt like an afterthought to me. Like it almost feel like the animal aspect of it was like, how can we throw in some of these things to make it worthwhile? And not, otherwise it was not really about Fantastic Beasts or where to find them. In fact, we kind of glossed right over the finding them part, even at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
He just had already found the found the beast. So look, we'll get into the plot and story and all that kind of stuff. But I want to kind of go around the room and talk about the initial reactions. Mine was sort of decidedly meh, and I'm pretty disappointed in general, because these films seem to have they started okay and then have just slid down hill pretty dramatically, which is kind of a bummer. Like the second one was, in my view, really not good. I rewatched the first one recently, sort of in preparation of this, and I was like, it was okay. I didn't hate it necessarily, but I didn't have very many strong feelings about it, which is about how I felt when I watched it the first time. So like I don't really feel like I've changed my opinion all that much about it. The second one I actively loathed and thought was a terrible movie across the board, and did a lot of things with characters that this movie, I think, tried to undo, but kind of couldn't. So we'll get into that in a minute too. But this movie, just extremely disappointing. I don't know. Am I alone here? Jen, were you, how did you feel about it?
This was a 2.5 hour movie. And it was boring from like start to finish. They tried to put in some aspects to this that on paper sounded very interesting, but the execution just was not there. It was so dull, and it lasted so long, and so many things just didn't work well.
Yeah.
And like they tried to make this almost like a mystery. We had a lot of different Chekhov's guns in this film.
A lot of MacGuffins in this movie.
A lot of MacGuffins.
And then like an ending sequence with like a multiple MacGuffin, like duplicate MacGuffin.
Oh man,
like
it's
6 MacGuffins at once.
Fooled you. But like there was no actual tension, and it didn't actually conclude anything.
Here's a really dumb Chekhov's gun from this movie is Dumbledore walking off with Kowalski, with Jacob Kowalski, who's one of the main characters from the first 2 movies, saying, "You'll have to tell me more about the 3-card Monty," and then 0 additional conversation about 3-card Monty, and 0 sort of 3-card Monty like usage conceptually in the multiple MacGuffin section.
It was just like, it was sloppy is what it was. This was just poor writing, poor direction, honestly, because other than Ezra Miller, I know all of those actors can do better than that. But they didn't. And that's not their fault. They can only do so much with the script and what the director wants. And it sucked. It was just not great.
Paul, I saved you for last because I have an inkling of what you're going to say, but unleash, sir.
Very rarely does a movie make me feel utter contempt for everyone and everything that was involved in the making of a movie. This movie is everything that is wrong with Hollywood right now. The story was nonsensical. It is the complete opposite of what made Harry Potter great. And even on the outside of it, the kowtowing to the Chinese Communist Party and taking out certain aspects of the movie, everything is just wrong with this movie. And frankly, I almost left the movie theater about 15 minutes in. That's how much this thing irked me right off the bat. So what really did it for me is right. We start this dark mountainous terrain with Newt Scamander, and he's going to find this deer thing. Deer thing has a baby, and then is immediately killed by, I don't know who, they couldn't really see. And then a CGI fest fight happens. Newt loses. These bad people, who I have no idea who they are, abscond with Bambi. And the next scene, for some reason, they decided to slit Bambi's throat on screen and show its last breath before dying. Okay, that's disturbing, and that obviously shows Grindelwald's depravity. But then the rest of the movie, there's no other, even anything remotely coming to that level of violence, that level of death. Nothing. Nobody else dies, I don't think, in this movie.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I don't think so.
It's.
The thing is, this is going to be a spoiler for the Harry Potter movies, which have been out forever, so I don't feel too bad about this. And for the Harry Potter books, but Grindelwald survives, right? Like Grindelwald is in Voldemort meets with him and talks to him when he is at the sort of the end stages of all the Deathly Hallows stuff, and they're looking for, what used to be Grindelwald's wand. Voldemort literally goes and finds him in like a prison somewhere and talks to him. So he survives this. So that was a given, right? Like from a narrative standpoint, like Rowling had to, she had to like have him survive the end of this movie. But you're right, Paul. It's weirdly like bloodless the entire time for somebody who is supposed to be this mass murderer, kind of lunatic, and honestly, like the thing that kills me about this movie to some extent is that Grindelwald is a really, if you were doing this from a libertarian point of view, Grindelwald is a really, really interesting character. And the Grindelwald Dumbledore relationship is a really interesting relationship because in the books, basically Dumbledore and Grindelwald are young men who are, I mean, they're like Trotskyites. They're like guys who believe really strongly that like they've come up with the secret to managing the future of the world, and if only they had all the power and they could do whatever they wanted to do, they could solve all the problems in the world. And what Dumbledore realizes over time, especially with the interactions between Grindelwald and his family and all that kind of stuff, is that like that leads down this road of authoritarianism and power, and he ends up, big spoiler here, but sort of accidentally maybe killing his sister or being part of the fight that ultimately resulted in his sister dying. And so that really breaks him of this idea. He was like, oh, I'm going down this path that has made me a bad person, and I want to pull away from that. And I want to talk about that too when we get to the talking about the end of this movie, because the end of this movie actually enraged me. But the rest of it is like this idea of these essentially 19th century, early 20th century progressives thinking that they can rebuild the world however they want, and then one of them going on and becoming essentially an ethno-nationalist socialist, like a very Hitlerian sort of figure, and then the other one going, whoa, that wasn't exactly what I meant, and then spending the rest of his life sort of feeling bad about his role in all of that. And that's how it's painted in the Harry Potter books, which I always thought was one of the more interesting things once you actually start getting into Dumbledore's backstory. And that would have been cool to me in this movie, but it's like literally not what happens.
And as far as like character arcs are concerned, I am a big fan of the whole friends to enemies and lovers to enemies arcs. Like those are really fascinating. They can be really, really compelling, but we got dropped in like after the end of those arcs.
Yeah, and all the drama that would have happened between Dumbledore and Grindelwald happens like before the movie starts.
Yeah, there were tonal promises and thematic promises made at the beginning of this movie, and at the beginning of this entire Fantastic Beasts franchise that just do not get paid off.
Yeah.
We see zero progress, we get zero payoff, and it's just this, I don't trust these movies anymore.
What's weirdest to me about this movie, maybe more than literally everything else, is that it feels like a complete and utter departure, and it's just utterly detached from the previous two movies. The previous two movies were largely centered around, Newt Scamander himself and the human Muggle character, Jacob Kowalski. And the great thing, first of all, Kowalski was my favorite part of the previous two movies by a lot. Like he's a really good everyman. Like a lot of times in screenwriting, you talk about finding some character that's just like a POV character for the audience, somebody who just comes in that has the same level of familiarity and sort of understanding and everything else as the audience. And then that becomes your eyes into this weird, crazy, magical world. And Harry Potter did that very well in Harry Potter, right? Harry Potter is effectively a muggle, believes he's a muggle, coming into the magical world. And it is baffling and exciting and amazing to him. And thus it is amazing and baffling and exciting to us as the audience. Kowalski serves that same purpose. And then at the end of the first movie, Kowalski has met this woman, Queenie, who's the sister of one of the main female characters in the film. And they sort of fall in love, or they're very flirty. And I think they're like pretty much in love at the end of that movie. And then that movie has kind of a tragic ending that is then sort of subverted, which is Kowalski, like basically all this magical stuff happens, and Kowalski, along with all of the other muggles, has to have his memory wiped. So they do this big like mass memory wiping thing. And So Kowalski, who's built this great relationship with Queenie and with all these other folks and who's become friends with everybody now, has to forget them and go on with his muggle life without them. But Queenie kind of does something to make sure that he doesn't forget. And then in the second movie, they develop their relationship even further. Now they're dating and like she wants to get married. And the second movie is where that whole thing goes awry to begin with, which is that Kowalski refuses to marry Queenie, which makes no sense. And then she ends up they end up sort of at the end of that movie at like a Grindelwald rally of some kind. And then Queenie sides with Grindelwald, which is completely against everything we've established as her character. She's just the most sweethearted, loving person you can imagine. And then suddenly she's like, no, you're right. All of these Muggle-borns are evil. And you're like, you're in love with a Muggle. What are you talking about? This makes no sense of any kind. And then so this movie, we have to have this weird thing where Kowalski is like sad and mopey, and then Queenie is like in the inner circle of Grindelwald. But why? She wasn't I'm going to spoil everything here. She wasn't a spy. She wasn't doing it on behalf of Dumbledore, like some, sort of plan that Dumbledore had. She just, why did she join him in the first place? It made no sense in the last movie. It still makes no sense in this movie. But like everything else in this movie, like all of these original characters that were in the first two movies are complete back burner. Kowalski's not that important to this. Like Newt Scamander even is not that important to this. And even to the extent that he is important, like he doesn't develop as a character. Like there's nothing, he doesn't have an arc. Like none of those characters have an arc. Kowalski doesn't have an arc. Queenie doesn't really have an arc. I mean, she sort of is like, oh yeah, I regret my decision, but like, that's about it. It's weird because this movie then completely focuses on the Dumbledore and Grindelwald relationship. And other than that, it just introduces a ton of new characters who we have no context for. Like you were saying, Paul, like all the people at the beginning are sort of Grindelwald's henchmen. I don't know who any of them are. They don't mean anything to me.
Nameless Thug 2.
Nameless Thugs 1, 2, 3. There's some clearly corrupt people in the Auror's office, I guess, like some corrupt cops, I suppose, but like I don't know who they are either or why they're corrupt. I don't know what they believe. Then this is where it starts to get like really enraging to me, is that as we get towards the end of the movie, that this intersects with the world's politics, and they're having this election for a position I didn't even know existed, which is the head of the international wizarding government, which again, I didn't think there was an international wizard government. I thought there were.
It's first time hearing of it.
It's first time hearing of it too. Like, because the whole thing with like the Goblet of Fire is that it promotes international like relations, because otherwise everybody's separate. And so they do this Wizard Cup once every 4 years to bring people together. Like it's the Olympics, right? Like it's like the idea of the Olympics, which is we bring all these countries together and get to know each other for the first time, in 4 years. It doesn't make any sense. So, but it gets worse because the government makes no sense. Like it's like the dumbest form of government I've ever seen. And they keep talking about how the candidates, there are two candidates initially, and then Grindelwald becomes a candidate, which is baffling. But they keep talking about how each of these candidates has a unique vision for the future, but I don't know what any of their visions are.
Nope.
Or why they believe them, or what's good. It's so thin.
Man, this one really got phoned in. Like, if I'd been working on a fictional universe for the last 2 decades, it would be more fleshed out than this.
I don't know how it's not.
I don't either.
It's so weird. Like, okay, so I've complained about Harry Potter. I mean, I've done 2 Out of Frame episodes on Harry Potter, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think probably in both of them, I've insinuated, if not outright stated, that like I think the politics of Harry Potter, like their political system is absurd. It makes no sense. Like Harry Potter there's like no due process. There's no clear standards of evidence or review. There's like they're easily duped by dark wizards, like extremely easily duped, because apparently all you have to do is be like, Lucius Malfoy and say, hey, Harry Potter did something bad, or or Dumbledore, who you've got as like one of the most respected wizards of all time, can say, hey, Voldemort is back, and everybody in the ministry is like, oh, I don't believe you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but here's evidence of him being back. Yeah, no, don't care. Like, what are you talking about? It's the weirdest thing. And their method of choosing leaders makes no sense. And then their method of choosing international leaders is the dumbest thing I've ever seen, which is apparently you get a bunch of people together. I don't know who those people were. I don't know if they represent their various countries. I don't know if they're just random voters. They all go to Bhutan, and some temple in Bhutan, and they vote, as one does, and they vote on a leader, except for apparently, well, first of all, if you are a criminal and a mass murderer who has been, who the government has declined to charge, you can just show up literally the day of the election and declare yourself a candidate and become a candidate. So that's possible. And secondly, the voters don't really matter because Bambi gets to decide who's good. Why would you, like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, I don't know what any of this is. And then, by the way, the idea that Bambi, who they've established in this movie, this sort of weird deer lizard thing, can sort of spot goodness. Like it identifies people who are pure of heart, right?
Mm-hmm.
Somehow, miraculously, it identified, like the real one, spoilers, identified Dumbledore and one of the other political candidates as being pure of heart. Dumbledore, first of all, we know is not pure of heart, and he knows he's not pure of heart, which is why he got freaked out about his role with Grindelwald. He was tested and found lacking, and that disappointed him about himself to the point where he spent most of the rest of his life atoning for it. So why would the deer? What?
And also,
you've established this. It doesn't make any sense.
I understand that this is a fictional, magical universe, and the rules can be whatever we want them to be. But a pure of heart politician.
Not a chance. Not a chance.
Like, this person is already the Brazilian Minister of Magic. She has already, like...
This is a Santos.
Yes,
who,
Santos.
by the way, who we know, this is
literally
how much we
nothing.
know. That we know this much about Santos. We know that her name is Santos. We know that she's probably from Brazil and that she has a vision for the future.
She has great hair.
Maybe. She does. She's tall. She's relatively attractive. And I don't think she has one line of actual dialogue in the movie.
I think she said hello to somebody.
Maybe. Yeah.
But whatever.
But now
whatever.
she's like Minister of International. She's like the head of...
She's already achieved like some pretty high political office and is actively looking for the only step up from there.
Yeah. So I'm pretty sure she's not pure of heart.
Inherently. There's just there's going to be some kind of raw ambition in there.
Yeah.
That she would, and the arrogance to think that her vision of the future is the one for literally the whole world.
Yeah.
Just.
How does this deer thing work?
At least
try.
Like,
I get it when they like started in the middle of the movie, they sort of insinuate. They have a moment that's a little bit like, it's like Captain America moving Thor's hammer a little bit. It's like the deer really likes Kowalski.
Yeah.
Right? Like the deer it's supposed to bow to you when it's decided, when it's made its determination. And it'll bow and say, "Oh, you're the one." And it doesn't do that with Kowalski, but it's like the whole reason Kowalski is included is because he's just a good guy. Like that's literally the whole reason they invite him in, because he's a baker. He doesn't have any actual,
and honestly, that's who you want on your heist team.
You know, I would want him on my heist team, but I wouldn't want him in the field. I would want him baking.
Yes.
Because he does appear to be a fantastic baker. So I will give Kowalski this. I would have him make any of my baked goods any day of the week. But yeah, but they have this moment where the deer is kind of like, oh, he's a good dude. I really like this guy. And so that feels like another sort of Chekhov's gun thing that is like, oh, what's this deer going to do with Kowalski later? We kind of hinted at this earlier, nothing, absolutely nothing. Nothing at all.
Nope.
Don't worry about it. We're going to play 3-card Monty, but in the end, all of the bad guys are going to catch all the people with briefcases, and they're just going to blow up the briefcases. So the 3-card Monty doesn't make any difference either.
Nope.
And then we'll just surprise it was somebody that we haven't seen on screen for 15 minutes. Who also was a character that was never introduced before, but now suddenly has a backstory and was part of what?
Very important. This
What?
person is very important.
Newt Scamander has this assistant who we've never met in any of the other movies, who he's like, this is my research assistant who's been with me for 15 years or whatever it was, and she's so important to my work. Oh, really? Why didn't I see her in literally any other movie or hear about her or even have her name mentioned until now?
Because that's what the script said, Sean.
Phoned in. Yeah, I'm super disappointed. And this was written by Rowling, right?
Apparently.
Yeah. No, this is bad. There's no sugarcoating it. It's one of the worst things and most offensive things. Just the ideas that it tries to contend with, and then just gallops on past without even thinking about. And then also this whole stuff with the Chinese, that whole with Dumbledore being gay. It was it was, quite frankly, it just felt like it was window dressing. It had nothing to do with the story, really. To Jen's point earlier, the whole arc of Dumbledore and Grindelwald having the falling out, it already happened. We never saw it. Then all of that stuff might be more powerful, but we never see any of it. We're just told that it happened and it's important. And then also to learn that Dumbledore killed his sister. It just does every character that you grew to love and respect in Harry Potter, the original series, and just Dumbledore just feels cheapened. Yeah. Really, honestly.
This is why I like the version in the books where it's not as, I mean, it's like it's not fleshed out, but like that bit, right? The stuff with Dumbledore's sister is right out of the books, but it's also handled better. It's like, he wasn't trying to hurt anybody. It's just that he and Grindelwald were having their big blow up fight, and in particular with Dumbledore's brother. But wouldn't have that been nice to see on screen, right? Like, this is one area where I feel like a flashback would have been maybe appropriate.
Would have done the trick.
Or a different movie.
Yeah, maybe a movie about that.
The Fantastic Beasts movies, I know they've made a lot of money just because it's Harry Potter, but I don't think anybody's really could say that they've succeeded in carrying the mantle forward for the franchise. No. So why try to shoehorn Fantastic Beasts into this? To me, you just tell Dumbledore's story. And that's immensely more interesting on the get-go, and you don't have to worry about the bajillion characters that you have. Like, I don't care about Kowalski. Like, he's a nice guy. I just don't care. He has no bearing on the story. He's waste of screen time. But the problem is that the same thing for everybody but Dumbledore.
Yeah. No, totally. Look, I agree with. I actually think that it would be more interesting anyway to do kind of a young Dumbledore movie because, first of all, the arc over like a 3-movie trilogy. It's like you could do a trilogy of sort of Dumbledore movies. The arc could be, young man, is like grows up in a kind of an abusive home. This is true. This is all from Harry Potter, from the books. Grows up in a kind of abusive home with a pretty terrible dad. And like a brother who is really, I don't want to say like Aberforth is fine, but he is just not a super genius. Like Dumbledore is a genius. He is somebody who is just held back by his entire surroundings. He's somebody who he does have a vision for the world, and he has ideas, and he has creativity and curiosity, and all of these things can't be satiated by his sort of mediocre upbringing, right? But he also feels some responsibility to take care of his brother and to take care of his younger sister, Ariana, who is essentially handicapped, right? And so, like, he feels bad about this. Then he meets this guy, Grindelwald, comes in, who says, hey, you know what? You and I are on the same intellectual plane. We have the same interests. We have the same level of curiosity about the world. And we're young people, but like we're really on the way to becoming some of the greatest wizards of all time. And we know it. We can see this. And then Grindelwald sort of convinces him, hey man, who cares about your family? Leave your family. Let's go off and globetrot. Let's go off and explore the world. And that would be a really interesting movie 1, right? Like the debate in movie 1 is all about like, do I leave my family? Do I not leave my family? If that movie ended on big fight, big blow up fight, do I stay or do I go? And then that ends up with Ariana dead, leaving Dumbledore not only free to go, but also kind of unwanted at home. That leaves you a whole second movie that is like a really good like tension point that just starts like, did I make a massive mistake? And I haven't atoned for the family situation. I've got to come back and deal with family. And then if they spend the whole second movie where Grindelwald is like, yeah, man, come on. Like, these muggles are idiots who don't, they're completely beneath us. Having that be the debate for movie 2, and then movie 3 be Dumbledore versus Grindelwald. Hey, man, no, it's not cool. You can't genocide all the muggles. Now I will stand against you. And now we have to break up. And now we have to
see, that's the lovers to enemies arc that I'm looking for.
Yeah. What did that take me? 2.5 minutes? I mean,
with zero prep time.
With no prep?
I would watch those movies.
That sounds way more interesting, but there's also another choice.
Not do it.
To just not do it.
Harry Potter. Okay, so we've talked about Harry Potter on the podcast before. I hated the movies, and this just continues to show why the movies it sucks. They all pretty much are terrible. And I get there's like nostalgia things and things like that. But I think what the problem is that people our age, millennials, grew up with this, and we want it so badly to be able to grow old with us, but the foundation just isn't there. It's children's books, and that is what just keep it there, and that's all it needs to be, and that's fine. Like that is not. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. These are some of the greatest books, and I cannot wait for my children to grow up and get to become that age where they read the books, appreciate them, because they're really good books. But just let the past die.
So I've been thinking about this.
Kylo Ren was right. Just let it die. Kill it if you have to.
Just kill it if you have
to. We don't
to.
need a hard R Dumbledore story. Like we don't need it. And
it's fine.
And the world just cannot support it.
So I've been thinking about this a little bit with Marvel lately. Not to like radically shift gears here, but like I've been thinking about this. Like, so the Thor, as we're recording this, the Thor Love and Thunder first probably teaser came out. I don't know if you guys have seen it yet. It's like Taika Waititi. Like I like Taika Waititi. I like a lot of the stuff that he's done. I like I watched the first couple episodes of the pirate show that he's been doing, and like with Rhys Darby, and they were good. It's not my favorite, but like it was pretty good. What We Do in the Shadows is phenomenal. Like that's just brilliant across the board. And I really, really, really like Ragnarok. Ragnarok is one of my top Marvel movies. We did the ranking. We talked about this. What's great about Ragnarok is that it sort of balances the seriousness of the stakes with Thor with some humor and wackiness that I think was kind of needed. But looking at the trailer for Love and Thunder, it looks like all wackiness. Like it feels like in the trailer, they've just gone like full on, like I'm just going to do something really silly. And then I'm looking at all the Multiverse of Madness stuff and what's, Doctor Strange is coming out and all this kind of thing. And and then what I did like a minute, like before we started this, because I watched that trailer, I was thinking about like the joy of 10 years of the core Marvel story arc. And then I ended up watching the sequence where Thor gets Stormbreaker, the axe, and then re-enters the fight in Infinity War, where he like basically, big third act twist of Thor like coming in full power, leveled up, lightning everywhere. And it's just like, oh man, that's just raw power, and it's just awesome. And it's just this feeling that you don't get that often in movies, where you're just so like, you're so excited that you just have goosebumps because you're like, oh yes, this is like the catharsis that I've been looking for this entire film. And it's just amazing. And then I think about what Marvel's doing now, and I'm like, I don't think I'm going to get that again. Like, I don't think they're going to be able to recreate 10 years of buildup and character development that results in me going like, yes, like in the same way. And so I kind of feel like maybe we should just let it go, like maybe it should just end. And then there'll be 10 years of like amazing development of a thing that's like really unique in cinema history. And Harry Potter, by the way, took about 10 years. Very similar story. 10 years, like just an amazing experience for the actors and for the fans and for everything. And then just let it go. It can end there. But we can't do that, Paul. It's not possible.
There's IP to be mined.
There's money to be printed.
There's money to be printed. There's IP to be mined. There's theme parks to populate.
Because 8 movies weren't enough to populate theme parks with. I mean,
no, you got to keep it going, man.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, because the
video
Dumbledore,
games to make. There's plush toys to develop.
The Kowalski ride at Universal is going to be, crazy. You just walk around.
But see, don't you think though? Like I truly believe this. I think that Fantastic Beasts is a choice that you make because of theme parks to some extent, because there's automatically an opportunity with Fantastic Beasts to just be like, look, it's the dragon ride from Fantastic Beasts, or it's the big weird rhinoceros thing attacks you, and now you're like with
maybe
immersive sort of rides at theme parks, especially like Universal, like that's a gold mine.
Yeah, but they have to be good. I think with Harry
Potter, they do, but
Harry Potter is a special case because it's one of those properties that is universally beloved by people, and it just continues to gain strength. I think the only way you really kill that golden goose is by making really bad movies over and over again, and that's what they're doing. Yeah. So I'm not sure. Marvel's doing the same thing. Star Wars,
quite there yet, but Star Wars certainly doing the same thing.
It's pretty disappointing. We talked about Sonic last week, so I'm sure there'll be a Sonic Land coming soon.
I don't know who. No, because Sonic is being produced by the Sega people and by who else who's distributing Sonic? Sony. It's not Sony, is it? I feel like it should be. Am I just being like just assuming that because it's Japanese that it's being released by Sony.
How dare you?
How dare me? I gotta find out. I want to know who distributed that. But Paramount. Okay, Paramount distributed it. Oh yeah, of course, because they did the rings instead of the stars around the mountain. They did the rings. Which is
That's
cool.
right.
But Paramount doesn't really have a theme park. Like Paramount, you can do Paramount Studios tours and stuff, but they don't really have like the same kind of kind of thing as like Universal or Disney, obviously. I don't know what you do with that, but I don't know. Yeah, it's weird, man. Like a lot of this stuff is, it does feel like it's run its course, but we can't allow it to die because it's easier to continue to mine that IP than create something new.
Yeah, it is, and this is just very lazy. The Nazis are bad guys, but not really. The Germans, for some reason, are doing things in this movie. And
yeah, I don't know.
That's not explored at all either. Just, it's Berlin. Oh boy.
Right. But I don't understand why everybody was like they were not in favor of Grindelwald, and then suddenly the deer thing is like, oh, he's okay. So then everybody's like, woo, Grindelwald. What?
It's
yeah. Bottom line, don't go watch this movie.
no, please don't. Like, it's just bad.
We took the bullet on this one for everyone.
Yeah, I'm feeling that way.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's super disappointing to me because I really again, I didn't have high hopes because the second one was so terrible, but I don't know. I kind of felt like you could pull out of that slump in some way or make it better, make something better than the second movie, but guess not. I don't know. All right. Well, let's do some star ratings on this. Is going to be a short episode, actually. We'll do some star ratings and wrap it up here on Secrets of Dumbledore. Jen?
No stars. It's boring, too long. Doesn't hit any of the plot points that it should. It's bad. Don't. 0.
Paul?
I think we finally found a major IP movie that is worse than The Last Jedi.
Ooh.
So
them's fighting words, but I think you might have a case.
At least The Last Jedi looked good. This looked terrible.
Fair. That's fair. This movie did not look very good.
Yeah, I mean, 0 stars, negative stars, 0.
We have not planned for negative stars, and also, unfortunately, negative stars would I don't know where they would come from. Would they come from other movies? You'd have to some other movie would have to make up for it before it could break even.
Where did any of the plot points in this movie come from? I don't know.
Yeah, this movie definitely felt like a lot of the utter violation of Emma Coates' story advice from like Pixar story advice, which is like, rather than yes and something happens, like you have and then because this happened, then this happened, because that happened, this happens. But this movie was like and then and then something else, and none of it connects, and it's all nonsense. So big fat goose egg for stars for me. A silver goose egg from the Harry Potter universe. Yeah, and also just a personal sense of regret because I just feel like this is a really lame way to end this sort of thing. Like if you're gonna sort of fade away, you probably should have just not done it at all. It's bad choice.
This ain't ending. They still got 2 more coming out.
I'm not sure if they do. I don't know if they've first of all, this movie is flopping pretty hard right now. So this movie may lose like $100 million. So we'll see about that. But also, everybody is upset at J.K. Rowling for being, for having opinions that people don't like. So I don't know. I don't know what'll happen. But it shouldn't. I think although I'm disappointed, I don't really feel like this deserves another opportunity. So let's give that whatever 150, 200 million dollars to somebody else and make a different thing at this point. So cool. All right. Well, that's it for Fantastic Beasts 3 Secrets of Dumbledore. That's also too long of a name. Let's just be real. So for everybody who is a supporter of the show on Patreon or Subscribestar, that's patreon.com/outoframeshow or subscribestar.com/outoframeshow. We're going to have a bonus episode for you where we talk about, I think we're going to hit some viewer questions today. It won't be a potpourri like last time, probably, but we'll have some viewer questions. And if you're not a supporter, consider, kicking us like $1 a month or so. I mean, that'll get you access to all the behind the scenes content. It'll get you access to Discord, to our private server on Discord. We've got the public Discord as well, so join that either way. And, other cool stuff. So even like $1 a month is cool, and it helps us continue making this stuff. So thank you very, very much for listening on Spotify, Google Play, Apple, wherever you listen. And we will see you next time.